If it's been a minute doing something, it's gonna be hard to just jump back into it. At least that's what everybody has forgotten. Yeah, whenever you've been playing basketball at a professional level and take some time off, your skill is going to naturally diminish. So if you've been in a place where you don't use your voice that much, and now you're trying to be really loud or talk a lot, your voice isn't gonna be able to do that right off the bat. It's gonna need a little bit of vocal training. I would say it can take up to 2 days to just get your voice warmed up. There are several practices that can help do this. There's the classic Anchorman lines, like the copper cobble copper pot, seashells, she sells seashells on the seashore. There's all sorts of things. I used to do some of those vocal warm-ups before I'd go into interviews, and it was absolutely fantastic, because here's this little shy guy who doesn't really speak that much, and to sound like, more confident with words, louder, and to understand what I'm gonna be putting up with going into this interview, like knowing what I'm going to sound like to this guy, it's really good to get some vocal warm-ups going. I know a lot of thing that people forget to do, especially if they haven't talked for a while, is to open their mouth. That's one of the most important things I can recommend. It gets rid of a lot of stuff. Right now, I'm speaking kind of closed mouth, and you might be able to hear some cotton mouth going on, but if you open your mouth a lot wider, then it can sound fuller. You sound more like an operatic singer rather than some edgy emo band. Both are great in their own performances. I definitely love listening to them, but it's just an example of how sounds can sound. With stuff like emo music and sadder things, it's really good to have that closed off mouth sound because you sound sad, you sound scared, it just sounds cool. But if you want to sound confident and more loud, definitely open your mouth. Now what about that actual loudness? How do you do that? How do you do that after so long of not speaking? Clearly, your vocals are going to have a little bit of an issue doing anything loud again. They'll be like, what? Huh? How do I do this? So your vocal cords are kind of good. They're like this little box that sits in your, I want to say larynx, but it's just that big tube that goes down your throat. The tube has a close-off latch, which allows air to go through, and then when that latch is closed, I believe that's when it lets water in. I'm gonna correct myself on this later, but it's a very, very cool part of the body, and it's very important when you're speaking because this is how air gets in, through that big tube. It gets from your lungs, out of that tube, you breathe in, you breathe out. That's that whole tube process. I go on to ramble for the next 20-something minutes about vocal cords, about sharks, and about ways to train your voice to do certain things, but I never really got at my point. And my point was that the larynx is part of your vocal box. The epiglottis is that thing that can cut off air from going in through the larynx. Now, while your voice does not just come from your vocal cords, what happens is the air comes out through your lungs and it vibrates those vocal cords, going through it like a cavern, and that produces the pitch that you'll hear from your voice. So if it goes through a very cavernous space, then you're likely to have a much deeper voice and a more visible Adam's apple. However, if that area is smaller, you're likely to have a higher pitched voice. I thought it was always fascinating to go over this, and I wanted to go over it correctly, which is why I'm stepping in right now. I think that this was really important to go over because there was an individual out there who was talking about what it was like to get back into using their voice, and that they didn't quite understand how to use it. I wanted to add on my own thoughts on the matter because I personally have gone through periods of time where I did not speak. Long periods of time where I would be very, very quiet, and then maybe once a week, twice a week, I would make a video, and I would want it to sound very, very, very good. But my problem in making these videos and having to re-record over and over and over again was that I did not know how to use the muscles in my entire body, which inevitably affect the way that you sound. Because just like that cavernous space in your larynx, there are also the muscles in your mouth. Your tongue is the strongest muscle in your entire body, and that is a muscle that affects how you sound. There are singers out there who speak with their tongue towards the front of their mouth, and there are singers that speak with their tongue towards the back of their mouth, which I'm trying to show you what it sounds like. You know, you have the front of the mouth tongue speakers. It sounds very much like the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland. And then you have the very, back of your throat tongue speaking, which is another matter entirely. There is speaking with your tongue at the top of your mouth, which gives a very unique sound, and then there is putting your tongue at the bottom of your mouth, which I'm sure a lot of you know Adam Sandler uses that to speak. And it can sound very, very goofy. In fact, it can look pretty goofy as well, and it adds an element all in of itself. Just like that, there are other muscles, there are other groups of your structure that affect the way that you sound. Everything from if you have your arms flexed to having your nose open, everything affects everything. This individual out there who was talking about needing to learn how to speak again, at one time spoke about using the airy H sound to get their words out. This airy H sound comes from a technique which urges people to push air out at the start of their sentences, and that H sound helps you to remember to do so. I myself was having a strong trouble doing this for quite a while, and bad habits are easy to get back into, so it's something that I constantly have to go back and relearn. But just like a pro basketball player, we learn things over time that becomes part of our muscle memory. Muscle memory are things that we automatically do. So blinking would be a muscle memory that has been toned so greatly, in fact, that we don't have to think about doing it. Breathing, with your belly going out, protruding into that unknown world that's around us called air and light and space. That is another muscle memory that a lot of us don't have to think about. However, there are individuals who do have to think about how to breathe in, how to blink, how to listen, and how to move their feet. Such things can be brought into your muscle memory by simply focusing on those things and doing them the same way over and over and over again. And through that repetition creates muscle memory. I'm pretty sure that individuals out there who were once very capable of speaking, very capable of saying what they needed to say and do what they needed to do, have done so for so long that by simply getting back into doing that thing, they will naturally start to remember those muscle memories and to redo those same sounds and get those same criteria of perfectionism that they so aim for just stepping back into stuff. It wouldn't be my belief to simply rely on my memory and just hope that I can do it again. However, there are many a story that tell that when an individual steps on the stage, there is something that takes over them. And though these things cannot be fully explained by every individual who doesn't go up on stage, it is something that individuals do rely on. And if it helps you at all to do that stuff, then it helps you. For me personally, I rely on the techniques, the practices, and the training. That ingests is learning how to do vocal warm-ups. She Sells Seashells on the Seashore is a very, very good one. No matter how you speak, this is supposed to help you with your S sounds to make them sound more delicate and polite. There are other vocal warm-ups like Copper Cobble Copper Pot, which is something to help you with your P's and C's and O's. They are to help you with tongue-tied shenanigans that may be going on that prohibit you from clearly speaking what you are wanting to say. Such things take time, they take practice, they take adequate training day in and day out. When you get frustrated and fry your voice, know that it is not because you have been speaking too long, per se, but perhaps you are speaking with a technique that is naturally hurting your voice. There's an individual out there who believes that if you are speaking while you are falling asleep, that same relaxed behavior is going to be the thing that allows you to speak for longer periods of time without frying your voice. This allows you to do what is most natural to your body, and it helps you to avoid many vocal strains that a lot of artists swear by get their sound, which also causes tearing in the 12th chord of your larynx, forcing some intense singers who continuously go by these terrible techniques, which give them this grand sound that they swear by. It causes them to later go into surgeries and have it removed altogether. A lot of singers out there do take breaks when this thing happens, and they are fortunate enough to come back and be able to sing with even half of that pitch that they used to get to. While some singers swear by the hands of faith, this unbeknownst thing that is so real. But it's hard to explain if you do not believe that faith is an adequate thing that allows you to get that sound that you are wanting to go to. While it may not be a sense of God or religion that helps us to get places, it is the ideas that help us to get there. And it is the people who can pass down those ideas throughout generations. It's not only the older individuals who we have to listen to, but we can listen to the newer individuals, those who try things on their own. Through tribulation and error, do they find things that work for them? Perhaps they see things in a new light. Perhaps they have different technologies that other individuals did not have. Therefore, the newer generation can in fact do things such as the old generation. And that generation which is current at present time really has the hottest fire, because they have to look at both the old and the new, and not only bridge that gap, but create a space for themselves. It can be quite overwhelming. It is that courage that releases you from those constraints of thinking that there is something you have to do. Because there are individuals out there who will lie to your face, and they'll tell you that there are set rules, there are set things that you need to do. You need to learn who you are. You can't put on a character because you have to be legitimate. But that's not the case. That's not the case at all. The final great actor who I know out there once said that the story you are portraying the character for cannot be a lie, for a story is a story. And if you play as that character in the story, you are not telling the truth about what actually went on, because the story most likely is fictitious work or altered work, coming from a perspective of someone who simply remembers what happened, or coming from the perspectives of somebody who does not see things clearly, who does not understand the full scope of the picture. It is always going to be different than what we are seeing later on 10 years from now. So he said that if you play as the character, then you are playing as that character. You are the character. You feel the same way that that character feels. You say the same thing that those characters are written out to say. You do so not because it is false or inaccurate, but because that is what the character would do. And if you don't understand what character you're playing as, then that is not wrong at all. You are going through the creative process of creating a character that may be loved by generations over. I am not a writer. I do not know what goes into creating these characters. I'm not a creative expertise who can tell you how to create media in any regard. But I can tell you that being yourself in any given moment, or sounding however you sound, even if that sound is based off another individual, is perfectly adequate. Because in that moment, no matter what you say or no matter what you do, that is currently you. And if another individual tells you otherwise, then they are wrong. They can do it themselves as they so like, but they are wrong. They are not you. They do not know how long you have been putting in for prep work. They do not understand your creative flow or your expressive nature of creation. They do not understand what it's been like to be in your shoes. The struggles that we all endure are all our own. The victories that we all endure may be shared with other individuals in a sporadic nature, or even an outrageous desire for love and affection. But our victories are also first our own, such as love needs to be experienced by a single individual before it can be shared on with others. Love can also be taught to an individual by showing it to them over and over and over again, even when they bring pain. But there is a balance between showing love and allowing them to do that pain over and over again, versus showing them love and steering them away from those bad behaviors. You show them love. You love them when they are at rest, when they are peaceful, when they are kind. You show them love when they are angry and lashing out. You do not stick with this same flawless nature of perfect happiness when they're screaming and thrashing about. The worst thing that you can do is not to be emotionally involved with another individual's emotion. If they are mad, it helps them to relieve that in a way, to see another individual angry, such as when they are sad. They enjoy when another individual is sad with them. You acknowledge their sadness, you let it breathe. You acknowledge their anger, you let that breathe. You acknowledge their happiness and you do not tear it down out of jealousy or spite, but you are happy with them. And in doing so, you can create the strongest friendships and the strongest connections anybody can ever see. It is through these same connections that you can start to understand the things that you listen to and form your own meaning in what they sing about, what they tell you, what they show you through imagery. And thus, through doing so, you can enjoy the media exponentially. But it is different to create it, as I'm finding out. It is much, much different. I hope to step into this creation process a lot more. I seem to be quite bad at it. But there's so much fearlessness that goes into holding whatever you say and being whoever you are in that moment. Not only portraying that character that you sit as, but accepting it and loving it fully and letting it breathe and letting it just be whatever it is in the moment. I want to share a lot more of these videos. And through doing so, I may say the wrong thing, I may back myself up into a bajillion corners, but I also might do something great. I also might be able to put out there what I think and what I feel and what I actually want to say. A few of you have known me through my toughest times. A few of you have known me when I have no right words to say, when I anger everybody around me. And those times make me gasp out of how bad and atrocious they were. But only through getting through those atrocious parts was I able to find the words that I actually meant to say and find the actions that I felt comfortable with. As it is a shame that some of us are not able to imagine things like others can. Some individuals out there cannot feel the emotions that we ourselves are supposed to know how we feel like. We have no idea how we are in any given moment. And it is only through our actions that we are allowed to ever figure it out. Some of us are not good at other things. And that's the great thing about everybody talking with each other. It is because that we all have our own strengths in each and every one of us. And these strengths can help out where somebody else is struggling. Not because you're giving everything to this other individual, but because you can teach them how to exhibit their own strengths and how to live without the strengths that maybe their parents had. If their family is filled with doctors, but then one kid cannot for the life of them become a doctor, and they have to become like an aeronautical engineer, then so be it. You cannot fault the child for not being like the parent when they have realized what their strengths and weaknesses are and have gone after what they're good at. Interests are a very, very important thing to focus on when you're trying to build your kid up to be the best version of themselves. I've seen what it's like for kids to be able to exhibit an interest in any particular activity, and then that parent goes along to find anything related to that interest to show the kid. that expands interest in that category of thinking, and they're able to learn how to evolve on that to make that area grow. That's why the people who are closed-minded seem to fail out most of the time. And it is only through seeing more in this world and experiencing more are we able to fully understand the full scope of where we're at and what is currently out there and what our interests may be according to those things. And if your interest isn't out there, well, how do you know that your interest isn't out there? You see, when you get out and do things and you see things that are there, you also see things that aren't there. It's like matter and antimatter, things that were never proven to exist until more recently. And it's cool to see, because when you see something that doesn't exist, you are able to create that thing because you now see it. I don't really want to get super theoretical in what is and what isn't and what can be, but just know that way back in the day, we used to write books about things that were not real. We let our imaginations take over, and it wasn't about things being realistic or about things already having been implemented into our daily lives. It wasn't about things that we were accustomed to and reliant on, but it was about the imagination. It was about whatever was on our minds. It was about what could be. It was about envisioning whatever that thing was and writing it out, no matter what it was, and feeling in the details as much as you can until it seems logical. In doing that, we have created the most enormous inventions the world has ever known. So go out there and learn to use your voice. If getting back into the habit of doing something that you once did helps you to know how to use your voice, then do that. And do not back down from it because it does not work right away. Do not back down from it because it's confusing or seems irritable, but continue onwards with it and fill in the gaps along the way. That's all I had to say. See ya.